Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, happy Wednesday there, folks. Yes, happy Wednesday. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, and today we got a good friend returning to the program. He's been a little busy, but before we get there, got to go ahead and give a shout-out to today's sponsor, and that is the Expat Money Summit 2022. Head to briannicholsshow.com/expat, where you can go ahead and grab your free, yes, I said free tickets to this amazing virtual summit taking place November 7th through November 11th, 5 days. 30 expert speakers hosted by our good friend Mikhail Thorup from the Expat Money Show. And he is hosting this year's Expat Money podcast, where he promises if you watch for a week, you will reap the benefits for generations. Folks, I am so excited to have today's guest returning to the program. Now, he's unfortunately coming to us via phone today. Well, he's on his computer, but no video because he's running not on a landline. So that being said, Eric Brakey, the renegade statesman himself, welcome back to the Brian Nichols Show.
Hey, Brian, it feels like it's been forever. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to zoom out here and bring up. There we go. There's Eric Brakey.
There's my smiling mug. Whether even if it's still.
We'll make it work. But Eric, my friend, thank you for joining the program. So excited to have you back in the show. You've been so busy up in Maine. You're obviously our favorite renegade statesman because you are the host of Free America Now, the great podcast that it is. But also you're running for state senate once again up in Maine. Talk to us, Eric. What's been going on since we last had you here on the Brian Nichols Show?
Yeah, I've been knocking a lot of doors, talking with a lot of voters. I am running to reclaim my state senate seat that I held in Maine for, I held it for 2 terms in the past from 14 to 18. And I left, I stepped aside from that to run for U.S. Senate and Congress over 2 terms. Neither of those races worked out how we hoped, but we did get the message of freedom out there. And I think inspired a lot of new activists who are making a difference today. But yeah, I am running to reclaim my old state senate seat. It's been great to reconnect with a lot of my former constituents. Hopefully will be my constituents once again after this election cycle. And boy, people are hurting out there. Inflation is really hurting people. I mean, it's universal from truckers to soccer moms. As I go door to door, everyone is talking about the price of gas, is concerned about how they're going to afford their next fill up. In Maine, we're looking at, gas station just down the road from me. We're looking at $5.21 a gallon for the lowest grade gas. Boy, it's all of the warnings about inflation and the out of control spending and the printing of trillions of dollars out of thin air that us libertarians have been warning about for decades now. It's all coming to a head. And nobody outside the liberty movement seems to have any idea how to talk about this. And, it puts us in a great position where we are the ones with the answers because we are the only ones who understand how we got here.
I had a tweet today that went a little semi-viral. It was a retweet that was, it was a tweet that I basically retweeted it, but it wasn't a retweet. It was a screenshot of a tweet, but in essence, it was a retweet. I'm getting to the weeds. It was Peter Schiff, and it was back in 2020, March of 2020 to be exact, talking about what would be the consequence of printing trillions of dollars and, by the way, also arbitrarily shutting down an economy. And the answer, rampant inflation. It might not be right away, but you'll feel it sooner rather than you think. And rather than we think happened a lot sooner than I think we thought it was going to happen. I remember talking to my father-in-law, I think last summer, and he's like, do you really think inflation is going to hit that soon, Brian? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And he goes, I don't know. Every CNBC person I hear, they're, every Jim Cramer, inflation, that's not even on the horizon, but it's real. People are feeling it. And now what is it? 8.6%. We saw the inflation hit back in May. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. This inflation that was supposed to be, what was it? It was transitory inflation. It's turned into pretty stuck and not really transitory at all in any nature, has it, Eric?
Well, in the long run, it's all transitory. Perhaps that's something John Maynard Keynes would say, right? Yeah, but no, for us who are living in that moment of transition, as long as it might go on, and I think what we're transitioning towards is, the value of our dollars is transitioning out of our wallets and our bank accounts and our paychecks, and that way it certainly is transitory. Um, yeah, it's I think for a lot of folks who are working in the policy area, I mean, the answers are pretty darn clear to me in terms of what you need to do on the federal level to stop inflation. The answers perhaps are not going to be listened to or taken action upon, but the answer is pretty simple: audit the Federal Reserve, abolish the Federal Reserve, put America and the US dollar back on a gold standard so that the politicians, the political class cannot manipulate the currency like they have done over the course of the last 50 years that have brought us to this moment of, where we're teetering on a currency crisis. That would be the thing that needs to be done on the federal level. They'll never do it because they will never give up their control over the ability to reach into our bank accounts and take the value of the money that we earn. But on the state level, it's a little bit harder to talk to people about, what can we do to
Right.
protect people from inflation? I say we've got to deliver immediate tax relief for local people. So I would like suspend the gas tax, suspend, things, sales taxes on basic life necessities until inflation is under 4%. And that's just a band-aid, to be clear. But then long term, if inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, because of course, as you said, and Peter Schiff pointed out, we shut down and crippled our productive capacity as an economy to produce goods and services. So there's less to go around while flooding the economy with all these trillions of dollars of newly printed money. Of course, we're going to see prices skyrocket. So we've got to tackle the money problem and we have to tackle the production problem. We have to get people back to work. We have to we've got to lift the job killing regulatory policies that are making it impossible for people to produce goods and services like we were before. We need to put work requirements on welfare benefits for able-bodied adults without kids, pushing them to get back to work and off the sofa. I know in Maine, we're having huge labor shortage problems. I'm sure that's not unique to Maine. So these are things we can do on the supply side of the problem. And then on the money side of the problem, we've got to push for honest money. Every state legislature in this country should pass a resolution demanding that Congress audit the Federal Reserve, demanding that their state delegations to the U.S. House of Representatives and to the U.S. Senate co-sponsor and pass an audit of the Federal Reserve. That's where it begins in holding this corrupt monetary system accountable.
This might be like a little bit off topic, but let's just kind of focus on your district in Maine, because I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners are curious as well, because I'm wondering if your area is kind of more of like the that kind of purplish area that goes one way or another from year to year. I'm seeing, for example, my home district in northern New York, where I grew up, it was pretty squishy back and forth. It'd switch red and blue pretty consistently for a number of years until the past 5 years. It's been consistently red. So I was wondering, what does your district look like, and are you getting a positive feedback when you're going out and speaking to people, or are you getting some pushback? Because I know I have had some guests here in the show, and if they're in traditionally blue areas, they are in fact getting some pushback from some folks that I think we would traditionally think might be empathetic to our ideas and our values, but they just get stuck in the political discourse of the day. So I'm just curious, what are you seeing there, Eric?
Well, there's certainly always going to be people who believe whatever the talking points are of the Biden White House, that this is all Vladimir Putin's fault, and ignore the man behind the curtain printing trillions of dollars out of thin air. Don't pay any attention to him. There are going to be people who listen to those talking points and take their marching orders there because they cannot see beyond this veil of political tribalism. And that's a shame. But there are so many folks in the middle who are receptive and trying to figure out what's going on and looking for answers. I will tell you, you ask about my area, my Senate district that I'm running to represent. It is a big swing district in the state of Maine. In fact, it's kind of the swing district in the state of Maine. It's predicted control of the Maine State Senate in every election for the last 14 years. So whenever Republicans have won this state Senate seat, they've been in the majority. Whenever Democrats have won the state Senate seat, they've been in the majority. It's the bellwether. I've when I've won it in the past, I've won it pretty handily, about 60% both times, because I get out, I go door to door, I develop kind of personal relationships with my constituents one-on-one. I'm
Funny
doing that
how that
again. I've
works.
knocked on. Yeah, well, politics is personal, and that actually is encouraging to me, that you can kind of override these kind of partisan sentiments by just being a human being with people, knocking on their door, listening to their concerns, and talking in good faith about how we might try to develop solutions. And the solutions I'm always proposing are based in these principles of more freedom, more liberty, not more government. So, yeah, I'm out doing it. 500 doors in, I've got plenty more to do. But every single conversation, it's the price of gas, the price of heating oil, the price of groceries.
You're running with the big R next to your name. Oh, there it goes. There you go. I hit the wrong button. I forgot you're not with us actually on the phone today. So we got the nice picture of you. This is, by the way, Eric's Twitter profile picture for anybody who's wondering where this amazing picture came from. But Eric, I wonder, when you're looking at we're moving forward to like this 2022 election, that I feel, and I think everybody else feels, it's going to be a pretty big red wave, right? And I don't want to count, the chickens before they hatch. However, we're seeing, because of all the wet dream policies, basically, of anybody on the progressive left over the past few years that they've gotten in place, it's yielded not only the exact opposite of what was promised, but it's really turned off a lot of people who would traditionally be on the Democratic team. We're seeing, Hispanics just departing the Democratic Party en masse. And we just saw here, as we're recording today, down in Texas, I forget the lady's name, but I think she's the first ever Mexican-born woman to win a seat, and she's a Republican down in Texas for, I think it's a congressional seat. State Senate, sorry, just like you, state Senate. So we're seeing there is a change, and there is definitely some, we're seeing the red starting to peak out. But is it going to be enough? And I ask that because we've really taken a hard hit over the past few years. We're seeing, and we've gone through the inflation hitting home for so many people. We've seen what it's hitting at the gas pump, and now we're seeing the housing market that's gone up a couple percentage points just in a few weeks. So it's going to be hitting a lot of different areas too, and we're going to be going into this looming recession. We're going to be hitting that plus stagflation. So will the red wave be enough to kind of hold us together as we go through some very tough times here over the next few years?
Well, a red wave is good and all, but it really depends on what kind of Republicans are riding in on that red wave. If all we do, I am very glad that the progressives and the Democratic Party, and just all the politics that they've embraced these last several years, is they've abandoned pretty much anything that was ever redeemable about them. They love war now. They're against civil liberties. Like, anything that you liked about them in the George W. Bush era is gone. In fact, they love Liz Cheney now. They love the warmongers. They love all these, neocons. They want them in their party. Well, they can have them, and we'll take the regular working class people who are getting sick and tired of this stuff. But if all that happens in this election is the pendulum swings back, this is what happens time and again, right? The pendulum swings blue, and then it swings red. It goes from the Democrat establishment to the Republican establishment. And let's be clear, Democrats, and Joe Biden in particular, and Nancy Pelosi, and those making these big spending decisions in Washington, D.C. right now, are absolutely responsible for the inflation that we're seeing right now. And so are the big spending Republicans, who have done the exact same thing whenever they've been in charge. If we had just Rand Paul's and Thomas Massey's in, the Republican caucus in Washington, D.C., then, the Republicans on the federal level would be great. But it's so important. That's why it's so important that in these primaries, people have to vote. People have to find liberty candidates and support them. And, if Republicans take over and we get more Liberty folks in there to join Massey and Rand Paul, wonderful. At the same time, I doubt we're going to get such a critical mass of Liberty folks in Congress this go around to have the kind of real disruptive change that we need to have to get our country back on the right track, which is why I think the state capitals are where the real fight is. Because, I experienced this when I ran for Congress, and I had a very good shot of being the congressman from Maine's 2nd Congressional District. If I'd won that primary, I probably would be today. But the establishment did not want me. They spent $500,000 in negative attack ads against me to stop me from winning that primary. And we got the establishment candidate who ended up losing in a district that Trump carried. Go figure. But I've realized it's such a fully guarded fortress of corruption in Washington, D.C., that it's just so hard to penetrate with enough people to make the difference there. But we as a grassroots movement, we do have a competitive advantage, and our sheer numbers of activists and people who are willing to run. And if we run people for these state legislative offices, they can't stop all of us. And the state legislatures have more power than most people realize. If the states stood together worked with each other to nullify the wars with Defend the Guard, to nullify unconstitutional spending through tax nullification and pushing for an audit of the Federal Reserve and changing legal tender laws. There are so many things we can do from the state capitals in the immediate term to fix these problems. So I think that's where we've got to focus. And that's going to be the story that is always underreported, because everyone likes to talk about Washington, D.C. The focus is always there. But look at what happens in the state capitals this November. That's where the fight is.
Yeah, and thank you for focusing on the importance of talking about the getting involved, the Liberty candidates getting involved, especially in a primary level, because that is where the real change is needed. Because right now, I mean, you want to talk about a real pain in the back, it is the GOP and the Democratic establishments. They are truly the pain in the back of America. If only America had today's episode sponsor, our other episode sponsor, and that is Ebles. Yes, I've been using the Ebles freeze gel for the pain in my back, Eric. No good deed goes unpunished. I had a friend here whose parents' house got hit by some tornadoes. Now, thank goodness everybody was A-okay, but we had lots of trees out there that had to be chopped up. And, I'm chopping the trees up. One, taking the log, I twisted the wrong way, and all it took was that to send my back into a tizzy. Thank God I've been using the Ebles, because it has seriously been saving me from excruciating discomfort. And I sit all day long, so I'm on sales calls all day, so I don't really get the chance to move too much unless I'm out and about walking around. So being able to have this in the back pocket was great. So folks, if you want to go ahead and get 15% off your order over at Ebles and start your pain-free future today, go to briannicholsshow.com/Ebles. And when you're at checkout, use code TBNS. And yeah, you'll get 15% off at checkout. One more time, that's code TBNS, briannicholsshow.com/Ebles. All right, Eric, I have to ask you, because I'm curious your thoughts. Now, we talked about the Liberty folks running in the GOP, and that is important. That's what you're doing. But we saw over the past few weeks here, a couple of changes have taken place in both national politics and also state politics, because now the Libertarian Party has been, it's really gone back to more libertarian roots. And we've seen with the election of Angela McArdle and the Mises Caucus down the ballot. I know she got 69% of the total vote, but we've seen a big change in the Libertarian Party, especially in terms of messaging. So, hey, we might see the Libertarian Party actually be a vessel that some weary liberty advocates or liberty curious folks can now start to gravitate towards. What are your thoughts? Do you see the Libertarian Party being as a viable means now to go ahead and actually get more liberty warriors elected to both state as well as federal office?
Well, I'll say this. First of all, more power to them. I respect anyone who is getting off the couch and getting out from behind Twitter and Facebook and going out and doing liberty activism in the world. It's a good thing. As far as the Libertarian Party goes, I mean, I had that big debate with Dave Smith about this. Hey, it's great. I'm glad to see kind of a more Ron Paul message kind of at the center of the LP. But that doesn't really change the structural problems of our electoral system that disadvantages third parties. It seems like if the goal is to, if it's beyond just messaging and education, if the goal is to actually get people elected and change policy through, getting liberty champions elected to state capitals and to Congress and to the White House or what have you, the LP is just not a very effective vehicle for that because it's a rigged two-party system. I really think that where the best place where we can make a big difference is in the primaries for the Republican Party. There are plenty of liberty candidates running around the country, and they need the support of liberty voters and liberty activists to win those primaries and go on to win their general elections and then pass more constitutional carry across the country, pass school choice, pass defend the guard and bring the troops home. There's so many things we can do there, and the GOP is just under the rules of the road as they stand right now. The GOP is a more effective vehicle.
Yeah, we're not going to rehash that old debate because if folks really want to dig into it, that was over on Line to Liberty, right?
Yeah, that was over on with Mark Clary. Yep.
Yeah. So make sure, folks, if you're interested, go check that out. It was Dave Smith and Eric had a great conversation. And I personally, I think I'm torn. I've been torn. I think good ideas at the end of the day aren't enough, and you do need to use the best platform that's available to you, be that the Libertarian Party or the GOP. I don't really see the Democratic Party being a viable means to really advance liberty-based solutions right now. Hopefully in the future it'll get better. But with that being said, I absolutely hear you. I am cautiously optimistic though, and I will tell you why. Because I see a third of Americans who are completely apathetic or agnostic, that is, from the political infrastructure, and there's half of Americans total last election cycle didn't even vote. So we have a large group of people I think we could touch base with right now. And as we always talk about, meeting them on the issues they care about. And part of the things I think they're really focusing on and caring about is that there's just this exhaustion from the left versus right conversation, and that there's a demand, almost a hunger for an alternative. There is a desire for something to be different. We've seen this with the way Elon Musk has been approaching politics. We've seen the likes of Andrew Yang in his politics. I mean, heck, the Libertarian Party, by the kind of nature of itself, is the alternative to the two-party system. Now, that's not enough, right? There's a lot more that goes into that. And to your point, there's a lot of barriers that have held the Libertarian Party back. But thank goodness we're at a point, I would say, the technology has advanced enough that we're overcoming a lot of those barriers and making a lot of those barriers almost obsolete in their attempt to hold back third parties like the Libertarian Party, especially when we're reaching tens of millions of people beyond the traditional political infrastructure or the political corporate infrastructure that'd be going through the mainstream media. We're having a lot more ability to reach your average person one-on-one, podcast, what you're doing, going out, talking to people face-to-face, especially in those state and local elections. That does so much more than any ad dollar spend you could possibly do. And that is where we're going to win. And I think it's going to be, at the end of the day, a lot of party agnostic, which is a good thing. So with that being said, Eric, we're unfortunately already hard pressed for time. And folks, I want them to go ahead and learn more about your amazing campaign up there in Maine. Yes, you're running for state senate back in Maine, your old seat, and we're looking to reclaim that and put a good liberty warrior back in the state capital in Maine. So Eric, where can folks go ahead and find you, number one, to follow you on social media, but also learn more about your campaign?
Brakey4senate.com is the website. Go there, check us out, chip in $5. It's appreciated. You can also follow me on Twitter at Senator Brakey and on Facebook at Eric Brakey for Maine Senate.
Awesome. All right. Well, folks, if you enjoyed today's episode, well, please go ahead and give it a share. And when you do, give Eric a tag, and also please go ahead and give yours truly a tag as well. Also, remember, please go ahead and sign up for the Expat Money Summit 2022, briannicholsshow.com/expat. And if you have all those aches and pains and you want to get your Ebles freeze gel, briannicholsshow.com/Ebles, use code TBNS at checkout for 15% off. Eric, any final thoughts for the audience today?
Let's restore our freedoms, restore our paychecks, restore our Constitution, and kick the corrupt, tyrannical bums out of office.
Can't agree more, my friend. All right, folks. Well, please do me a favor. If you're here on the podcast, well, make sure you click the artwork in your podcast catcher, which will bring you to today's episode, where you can go ahead and find all of Eric's social media. Please go give him some love and give his content some shares. Also, if you're interested, please, yes, go ahead and support his campaign. The donations absolutely help us reach more people, and it'll help Eric reach more people up there in Maine as he's pursuing his seat there back for state Senate. Also, folks, if you're here on the YouTube, well, make sure, number one, you hit that subscribe button so you're not missing a single time that we go live. And to be sure, just hit that little notification bell as well. And by the way, did you check out our awesome conversation yesterday? We had Chris Widener. He joined us. He is joining President Trump on the American Freedom Tour. And we talked about the art of influence, how if you are winsome, you might actually win some. And oh, by the way, Eric, I asked the super important question. Is President Trump running for president in 2024? If you want to go ahead and find out the answer there, well, you got to click right here. The video will pop up here for our YouTube watcher, so make sure you go ahead and check that out. I'll see you over there. But with that being said, it's Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for the Renegade Statesman, Eric Brakey. We'll see you tomorrow.
Listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.